another episode of Well-Adjusted Mama. I'm your host, Dr. Laura Brayton, and today we'll be speaking on Bach Flower Remedies with my guest, Sarah Jane Coombes. Originally from Ireland, Sarah Jane's homeopathic practice is now based in Nova Scotia, Canada. She began her career as a social care worker and later pursued her studies in homeopathy, receiving her license from the accredited Irish School of Homeopathy after 4 years of training with a postgraduate in homeopathic therapeutics. Working out of Ireland's only homeopathic dispensary, she gained 7 years of experience prescribing for acute illnesses as well as prescribing constitutional homeopathics from her busy private practice. Welcome, Sarah Jane.
Thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here today.
Wonderful. Thank you. So you have been doing this for a long time, so you have a lot of wisdom to share with our audience about the benefits of utilizing Bach Flower Remedies during pregnancy as well as after birth and with children. So let's start off about talking about how you were personally introduced to homeopathy and Bach Flower Remedies.
Yeah, I had an interesting journey into this whole field. As you mentioned earlier, I originally qualified as a social care worker. After working in that field for a little while, I went traveling and spent some time in India. And when I was there, I became sick, and it was someone I was traveling with happened to have homeopathic remedies with them, and they shared them with me at the time. I was in search of a profession, a change of profession, let's say, into a more complementary field. Mm-hmm. So after taking the homeopathic remedies, I decided to go and investigate a little bit more about it, and I found that there was actually a school in Ireland that I could study at. So I went home and I began my studies, and I was really fortunate during that time to then be asked to work at a homeopathic dispensary, and that's how I began to work on a daily basis with people with homeopathic remedies and with the Bach flowers. So it was an exciting journey for me into the whole experience.
That is so cool. So was it really that how homeopathic remedies so much impacted your life and your health that you actually switched careers? Yeah,
and I was in search of a profession that was complementary in terms of I really wanted to work with people who wanted to be worked with, who wanted to heal, and that was a really important part of my choice of profession when I moved away from social care in particular. And then when I found the sort of people who were coming for homeopathy and for Bach flower, I thought it's just people are really engaged in a process, a spiritual process and a healing process. And I find it really privileged to work with people in that way. And also the impact on my own life, I think, has certainly driven me to continue my studies and continue working in the field, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That makes so much sense. I mean, even we can speak of the placebo effect, where really part of the healing comes from one's own belief that they have the ability to heal. That's the starting process. So it is so rewarding to work with patients and clients that are committed to their healing and are taking action and not expecting to have the healing come from the outside, from another source, but instead from within themselves.
Yeah, and I find that people coming to my practice, I think homeopathy helps to empower them further, that they feel like they really are taking an active part in their healing, and they're not handing responsibility somewhere else, that they're really engaged in the process, which is it's a very nice way to work with people.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. So can you just please explain to us what are Bach Flower Remedies?
Yeah. So the Bach flowers were developed originally in the UK by Dr. Edward Bach, or Dr. Edward Bach, as some people say. There's 38 in the set of essences or remedies, they can be called. And 37 of those come from wild plants, trees and bushes, and one is from a natural spring with healing properties. The remedies are made by either boiling or steeping the actual flowers or plants or shrubs in in water, and then grape alcohol is used and distilled water. And so that makes up the actual blend. And the remedies themselves, the aim of the remedy is to treat the individual, not the disease. So it's a very holistic approach to health. We're looking at the spiritual and emotional aspect of a person, as well as everything else that's going on with them, because the Bach flowers aren't necessarily aimed at treating physical ailments. Although if headaches, say for example, are coming as a result of stress or anxiety, people may find after taking the Bach flowers that they start to drop away, those ailments that they had. But really, Dr. Edward Bach, his focus was on the fact that personality and attitude to life is really what can cause us illness, what can bring about illness in our bodies. So he felt that like emotions like anger and greed and frustration and anxiety can all actually bring illness to us. So he felt like personality was a big part that could be looked at, and that's what the flower essences actually aim to treat.
Mm-hmm. So since you've been working with Bach Flower Remedies for a while, I'm sure you've seen, and probably part of your prescribing is finding out someone's personality or their emotional state, and either acutely or chronically to help determine which remedy that they need. Yeah,
and that's, as a talking therapy, it's really important to talk to the person about how they operate in the world, what makes them tick, what makes them feel alive, because one of the other things that Dr. Bach focused on was the fact that if we aren't fulfilling our true vocation in life, this can lead to an imbalance in our emotions. And this, again, can bring us to our whole emotional state to feel off balance, and then can bring illness to us. So it's very much about finding out where the imbalance is. So if somebody is constantly frustrated in their job, then that can actually impinge on their whole life, and that's the area then that would need to be addressed in the consultation. So it's really important to find out how the person interacts with life, with their family, with the school, whatever circumstances that they're working in, which is a very different way to working than a lot of other, like say, conventional medicine, which approaches health in a very different way.
Yeah. Right. Conventional medicine might just be looking at a physical symptom and prescribing a drug related to that, but this type of healing is really looking at the whole person, mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah, precisely, yeah. And the purpose of the remedies is important to note that it's not to suppress the negative emotional states that we all feel, because frustration and anger and anxiety are all just a natural part of life. It's actually to help to transform those emotional states if they're really out of balance. So a certain degree of it's okay, but anything that's like prolonged anger, extreme anger, that will eventually create some more difficulties for us. So the idea is to have the remedies helping to bring us back into balance and to stimulate our own emotional healing.
That is such a good point. Being human does involve positive and negative emotions, and all of the emotions are valuable. To not fully experience anger and frustration and other negative emotions is to really not be fully alive and fully feeling what happens in life, because these negative emotions will happen over life. That is part of of being alive. So, I think what you're pointing out is that it isn't about suppressing those negative emotions, but helping to create balance. And perhaps, let's say there is a negative stress that occurs in someone's life, helping them manage it. It doesn't mean that they're not going to feel the emotion, but the negative emotion doesn't have to be so overwhelming and so overpowering.
That's it, yeah. Which is, it's really nice for people to feel that maybe it's almost like the edge is taken off, so they actually get to deal with, they actually start to find strategies or coping skills then. When sometimes when the emotion is too intense for people, they just can't seem to get a distance from the emotion to actually begin to find some way to deal with it. And I feel in lots of cases that's what happens, that the remedy almost turns down the volume on that a little bit for us and allows us that space to begin to actually work with finding skills to deal with it. Yeah. And sometimes people find that the remedies can allow suppressed emotions to come up while the Bach remedies don't actually have known side effects. What can happen sometimes is if an emotion like anger has been deeply embedded for a long time and hasn't been addressed, when people take remedies, they may start to experience a little bit more of that, and that's important for people to understand that it's normally short-lived and shouldn't be too intense that they can't handle it, but sometimes that can be an effect of taking the remedy.
Right, and that's really health. That's a healthy process to help get to those deep-rooted subconscious negative emotions and to start to process them in order to release them. If we don't process our negative emotions, they can get really stuffed into our bodies, into our nervous system, and create disease and inflammation. So regardless, like you said, even taking a Bach flower might help bring out that negative emotion, that is a positive side effect.
Yeah, even though sometimes the person may not see it that way, but I find that generally once people understand that it's a process, and that's a really important word that I try to work with people on, that this is a process of working through something rather than putting a Band-Aid on it and just eliminating it. And once that's explained, that's helpful, Yeah,
that was my point that I wanted to make is, a lot of, for example, prescription antidepressants, for example, because we're discussing negative emotions. Allopathic medicine will prescribe like a SSRI drug to suppress the feelings of depression or anxiety. And that concerns me because that doesn't allow someone to go through the process of dealing with this emotion and the reason why that emotion is there, and it just gets suppressed. So what's beautiful about Bach flower is it doesn't suppress symptoms. It supports someone through going through the process of dealing with perhaps maybe a negative experience or a negative emotion, but helping to support them along the way so that they're feeling, like you said, taking the edge off, but still experiencing the emotion. It's not about not experiencing the emotion. It's about going through the process. I love that part too.
And very often that's, for people, that's why the consultation, because the remedies people can self-prescribe the remedies without much difficulty. But what happens in the consultation very often is that it allows people the space to explore. So you can read the remedies and possibly very quickly decide that, oh yes, chestnut bud is the one for me. I need to change my ways. I need to make some life changes and give up some old habits. But by exploring that in a therapeutic environment, something different happens, I find, where people just have the space to express, and that can be in itself really a big part of the healing process. That can be quite transformative, I feel.
Right. It's almost maybe like just a therapeutic session of actually verbalizing what someone's feeling to someone who they trust. And the other thing is, too, is sometimes some of these emotions are so subconscious, it can be challenging to have a full awareness of what needs to happen. And so getting guidance from a professional homeopath who works with Bach flower remedies can be really valuable because they can have more of an objective perspective of the whole situation. Yeah, and that space that's provided, that safe space where that's uninterrupted by anything else in life, allows for a stillness to come sometimes where the person can almost drop into the emotional state and allow something to come out. So sometimes people I find will say, I didn't really expect to talk about that today. And that wasn't what you asked me in the question. And I'm like, well, whatever happens, and wherever it goes, it's meant to go. And I very much trust in that process. Yeah. Wow, that's powerful. So can you please talk to us about how Bach Flower Remedies can be really valuable during pregnancy?
Yeah, absolutely. As somebody who's pregnant right now, it's been very beneficial for myself. But I can understand how the fluctuations that occur on the physical level impact the emotional level so strongly that it's an invaluable resource for women to know that can be used during pregnancy, because it's safe and it's relatively cheap, and it doesn't interact if women are on medication, which very often they're not during pregnancy. And it tends to be very gentle. I find women during pregnancy feel quite empowered by their ability to sometimes choose the remedies themselves as well. And some of the remedies that are really beneficial are remedies like white chestnut for those constant whirling, worrying thoughts that can consume somebody, so it almost like stops the cog, the looping thoughts. And clematis, which very often women find they can become almost a little bit ungrounded or forgetful during the pregnancy time. And that's one where it can help women to feel a bit more grounded, because that's a very unsettling feeling, to feel like I don't have as much energy or time, or I seem a little bit out of focus. My thoughts are somewhere else right now. My thoughts are with my growing baby rather than fully on my job. So clematis is a wonderful remedy for helping to ground that piece of ourselves, that everything is okay, and to bring us more focused and present. And a lot of women can feel quite overwhelmed during the pregnancy, the labour, and afterwards. And when the baby's born, and elm is a super remedy for helping women to feel just not so taken by the whole experience, in terms of they feel like they can cope with this and they can do it, and it is something that's fully manageable. I think the changes that can occur during that time can be very overwhelming on every level for women. So another one would be Star of Bethlehem, which can be for possibly the unexpected pregnancy or the shock, or if there's any trauma, or for a woman in labour, it's part of the rescue remedy, which a lot of people may be familiar with, the rescue blend, which is a blend of 5 remedies. And Star of Bethlehem is in that for the shock that can be before, during, and after pregnancy as well. So when you're looking at pregnancy, you're always looking at the individual aspect of it. What exactly is that particular woman experiencing? And that's where you can prescribe more than a blend of up to 7 remedies can be made into a bottle. And that can be that's a very specific blend for each woman that comes, rather than an over-the-counter prescription of just one, or sometimes,
That was one of my questions, is how many of these remedies can you mix together? So you're saying up to 7?
Up to 7 was what Dr. Bach recommended, and after that it can become a little bit complicated trying to deal with too many emotional states all at once. But through the consultation, I've always found that 7 is really appropriate. I've never felt the need to go beyond that myself. Sometimes I'm just prescribing 3 because there may be just 3 very dominant emotions, or sometimes even just 1, depending on what's happening.
Okay, so it could be anywhere between 1 and 7.
Yeah.
And if a woman is taking a remedy based on what she feels is best for her, how does she take it, and for how long?
Okay, so in the blends that I would make up, which is a mix of the remedies and water and alcohol, it's 4 drops 4 times a day. And in the Bach Flower bottles that people may buy themselves, it can be the same process. They're the stock bottles. The stock bottles can be used in a way that where a few drops can be taken from, say for instance, if a lady needs walnut for adjustment to the changes during pregnancy, she can take 2 drops of walnut and put it into her water every morning and drink that bottle of water all throughout the day as often as she feels is necessary. And each time she takes the water, she'll get a small amount of walnut. So it's about the frequency rather than the amount of drops that you take. Mm-hmm. So frequency can be important, and that's what's very supportive about the remedies, because somebody might feel the need to take it 6 or 8 times a day, which is perfectly fine. Yeah.
Right, and that's because it's a homeopathic. It's a type of homeopathic, and so homeopathics do work based on frequency as opposed to as much as quantity.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. All right, very cool. And then once she starts to feel a little more emotionally balanced, does that mean she can stop taking the remedy?
Yeah. She could stop taking the remedy. Sometimes I advise for people to continue for a few days afterwards, just to help keep that support going for them. And because there's no contraindications and you can't actually overdose on the remedies unless you bought many, many bottles and drank them all, and then that, there would be alcohol content in that tea. But there's no problem to continue taking the remedies. If somebody by chance chose a remedy also for themselves and chose the wrong one, it wouldn't have adverse effects on them. It's just that the remedy just wouldn't be active in any way for them. So they may notice that their symptoms may not be alleviated, and then they would be able to recognize that, maybe I needed to make a different choice.
Right, and they could do something different. And that was a good point that I wanted to ask about as well. These remedies are in an alcohol base as a preservative, but they're safe to take during pregnancy because you're only using a few drops. It's a very tiny amount of alcohol.
Yeah, exactly. And if women are concerned at all about using them during pregnancy, one way is to put them into a hot drink, a herbal tea, or just a regular tea or a fruit juice, and dilute them further. If people really have a problem or want to completely abstain from alcohol, that's one way to put it into the hot water. The alcohol part will burn off and it won't harm the remedy in any way.
Right. Hot water or hot tea will cause the alcohol to vaporize, so there's no longer the alcohol content, and then she can sip the remedy. Yeah. All right, great. And you mentioned, I think, a couple remedies to be used. Were they for labor or were they for after birth?
Okay, so there's some remedies that can be used from the very beginning, like from pregnancy through labor and afterwards. And then there's other ones that will be very, say, specific for labor, like rock rose, which is really invaluable for any states of terror that can come on for a woman during labor. There's also mimulus and aspen, which can be used before and during the labor. And aspen will be for that ungrounded fear of, I don't really know why I'm afraid, but I'm afraid. So if the woman can't put her finger on what exactly it is that's creating the fear, then aspen will be the remedy, whereas mimulus is for, I'm absolutely terrified of the pain, the woman might say. And then that would be when she knows the specific fear, then mimulus would be the indication.
Okay.
The other one would be olive, which is great for during and after labour, because olive is really invaluable for tiredness. And for during the labour, if it's a very long labour, women can become very tired. And then afterwards, because of late nights and feeding, again, it can be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, giving birth is like a marathon, and certainly having a newborn, you're not getting a lot of sleep. So that sounds very supportive, just to help a woman feel a little bit, perhaps a little more energy. Yeah,
and I think it's probably important to say that for the partner, sometimes whoever is assisting the woman in the birth, that they can feel helpful by being able to give the remedy. And if the woman doesn't want to take the remedy, it can be put into a spray bottle and just sprayed around her to help her feel a little bit refreshed, or it can be rubbed directly onto the pulse points. So if she feels ill and doesn't feel like taking anything, that's another way that it can be used.
That's such a great idea, because we know that the skin can absorb everything that's put on it. So these remedies can actually be used topically for someone, like you said, who is feeling nauseous, or during labor she's just like, don't put anything in me. Then this is something that can be used to kind of help create some emotional, and also just in the room in general, it would probably be very helpful for the staff to be exposed to that emotional support.
Yeah, and it's certainly no harm for the birthing partner to be able to take some rescue remedy, because they're also very much part of this whole process, which can be quite overwhelming for whoever that is too. So that can be nice.
That's such a great idea, that you don't have to actually be the laboring person to benefit from some emotional support.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And the great thing that's worth mentioning as well is that there's no need for women to worry if they are breastfeeding about taking the remedies, because it's only really the very tiny amount of alcohol that women would ever be concerned about with them. And also that it can be used for babies even as soon as they're born. So it can be rubbed directly onto baby's lips, or again just onto baby's skin. And there is rescue cream, which is the rescue remedy put within a cream and can be used for diaper rash.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So maybe like what type of issues that a baby, like a colicky baby, this could be helpful for?
Yeah. Any baby that would be in distress. A baby who might be quite easily frightened or appearing distressed, or, with physical symptoms. Yeah.
A baby who had maybe a little bit of a straining birth.
Yes.
The birth process is a challenge. Then that's going to be difficult for their emotional state, and so they might be a little more irritable. And so that makes sense that the baby could really benefit from this.
And the other remedy that would be really invaluable for mother and baby and the birth partner would be walnut, because walnut's a great remedy for transitions. And of course the baby's making one of the biggest transitions it will make in its lifetime, along with mother and birth partner. So walnut's really good for helping people who are in a very oversensitive state to cope with what's going on, especially if they feel that there's too much overstimulus from the outside. So it's really great for new babies.
Wow, that sounds so nice. I think I need some walnut. Sounds so great. I mean, we all have life experiences, right, that are out of our control. And so it's just so nice to know that there's tools like Bach Flower Remedies that can just help support us no matter what stage of life we're in. Yeah,
and it's so empowering, because you don't have to have a practitioner on hand. You can choose to work through processes. But if you're at home at night and you have a few of the remedies, it's great to be able to just look them up or become familiar with them and say, my baby could just do with some rescue remedy. They're really out of sorts right now. They're having a really bad colicky episode. They're feeling cranky. And it's just really empowering and reassuring for new mothers especially, to feel like there's something they can do and something they can do to help calm themselves in order to be able to react to the situation, not overreact to it maybe. It's like it gives a little bit of coping skills. It helps them to get to that
a little bit more of a logic reaction as opposed to like an emotional reaction.
Yeah.
So for a mother who's wanting to self-prescribe, what resources do you recommend?
Okay, so the Bach site, the Dr. Edward Bach, which is based in the UK, they have a wonderful site which has many of has all of the remedies listed with the indications. That's yet to come from my site, but for women who would like to know what remedies to use, I'm always open to just shooting off a very quick email if people want to write a few lines to me about this is what's happening and what will be the most indicated remedy. So, but there is the Bach Flower site answers lots and lots about that too, as does my own site, which is www.anewleaf.me.
Right. So if they're wanting to get professional guidance, they can go to your website, anewleaf.me, and contact you for a consultation. And you have clients all over the world, right?
Yeah, and I can send remedies, individualized remedy blends anywhere.
Mm-hmm. So they can contact you on your website, anewleaf.me, and you can schedule a Skype consult and prescribe a custom individualized remedy that can then be sent to them with instructions. So I think for some women, if you're just feeling overwhelmed and you don't know what to use, it's always valuable to work with a professional who has the knowledge base of how to utilize this type of remedy and help support you with creating the remedy that's perfect for you. Yeah,
and that consultation, as we mentioned earlier, can just provide that space where people can really drop into the emotional state and begin to transform and work with and express. And often that's especially pregnant and new mothers with babies need someone to talk to. It's like a support base as such, and that I find is as valuable at times, the process in itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes so much sense. Well, wonderful. So do you have any last thoughts that you'd like to share?
Just important to say that the remedies can be alcohol-free. They can be with glycerine also. So just for mummies who are very concerned and don't want any alcohol, that's probably a note to mention. And that they are considered 100% safe and can be used alongside conventional medicine. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
And that's such a good point, too, that you're finishing with, that this doesn't have to be one or the other. Like perhaps someone is already taking some medications that they need to be on for that period of their life. Bach flower can still be brought in, and it's not contraindicated.
Yes, yeah. It's complementary rather than contraindicated, which is reassuring.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom about Bach Flower Remedies today.
Thank you, Dr. Brayton. It was lovely to talk with you.